On December 31st, 1999, the world wasn't just waiting for a countdown, it was waiting for the total collapse of modern civilization. We were told that as the clock struck midnight, planes would fall from the sky, nuclear missiles would launch themselves, and your entire life savings would vanish into a digital black hole. But while most people think we survived Y2K because it was all a big joke, there is a classified reason why the lights stayed on that night. A secret so massive that it involves a hidden deal between the world's most powerful governments that I'm going to reveal by the end of this video. Imagine a world where everything you rely on suddenly turns against you. Your refrigerator stops working, the power grid goes dark, the elevators in every skyscraper freeze in place. This wasn't a plot from a Hollywood movie. This was the genuine cold sweat fear felt by the smartest people on the planet in the late 90s. We are talking about the Y2K bug, or the Millennium Bug, a tiny coding error that had the potential to reset the human race back to the Stone Age. You might have heard your parents joke about it, or maybe you remember the panic yourself. But the truth is far more intense than a few glitches. We were standing on the edge of a digital cliff, and most of us didn't even realize how close we were to falling. To understand why the world lost its mind, you have to understand how computers used to think. Back in the 1960s and 70s, computer memory was more expensive than gold. To save space, programmers used a shortcut. Instead of writing out the full year, like 1975, they just wrote 75. It was brilliant, efficient, and it saved billions of dollars in hardware costs. But there was a ticking time bomb buried in that logic. No one thought these systems would still be running 30 years later. The problem was simple, but deadly. When the year changed from 1999 to 2000, computers would see the digits 00. They wouldn't think it was the new millennium. They would think it was 1900. Think about the chaos that creates. If a bank's computer thinks it's 1900, it calculates 100 years of negative interest on your account. If a hospital's life support system thinks the date is invalid, it shuts down. If a nuclear silo's security protocol detects a massive date discrepancy, it assumes it's under a cyber attack and triggers a fail-safe launch. This wasn't just a maybe, this was a definitely.
As 1999 progressed, the energy shifted from excitement for the new century to pure, unadulterated dread. The media went into a feeding frenzy. Time magazine featured apocalyptic covers. Survivalist stores sold out of dehydrated food, water filters, and gas masks. People were withdrawing their entire life savings in cash because they didn't trust the ATMs to work on January 1st. In the United States, President Bill Clinton appointed a Y2K czar. In Russia, there was a genuine fear that their aging nuclear detection systems would mistake the date change for a massive U.S. nuclear strike. But here is where it gets weird. While the public was buying canned beans, the tech world was in a state of invisible war. Governments and corporations quietly poured over $300 billion into fixing the code. That is $300 billion with a B. Programmers who had retired decades ago were dragged out of their homes and offered six-figure salaries just to look at ancient lines of COBOL code. They were the frontline soldiers in a war fought in the dark. You might be thinking, well, if they spent all that money, then everything was fine, right? Not exactly. As the final hours of 1999 ticked away, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. People gathered in Times Square, but many were looking at the skyscrapers not with joy, but with the fear that they might suddenly go dark. The first test was Fiji and New Zealand. As they hit midnight, the world held its breath. The reports came in. The lights were still on. Then Australia, then Japan, then Russia. By the time the sun rose on January 1st, 2000, the world looked exactly the same. No planes had fallen, no nukes had launched. Your bank account was still there. Immediately, the narrative flipped. People started shouting, "It was a scam! The tech companies stole our money! It was the biggest hoax in human history!" But was it? Or was the lack of disaster actually the greatest engineering feat in human history. Imagine you're on a bridge that is about to collapse. A team of engineers works frantically for years, reinforcing every bolt and beam. When the heavy truck finally drives across and the bridge doesn't fall, do you say the engineers were lying about the danger? Or do you thank them for doing their job? That is the Y2K paradox. Because nothing happened, we assumed nothing was going to happen.
But there were glitches, chilling ones, that the media barely covered. In Japan, radiation monitoring equipment at a nuclear power plant failed at midnight. In the UK, some pregnant women received lab results that wrongly suggested their babies had Down syndrome because the computers miscalculated their ages. In the US, a spy satellite system went dark for 3 days. These were the sparks that could have started a wildfire if the billions hadn't been spent. But here is the secret I promised you. The real reason we didn't see a nuclear war between the US and Russia wasn't just because the code was fixed. It was because of a secret, unprecedented operation called Center for Strategic Stability. For the first time in history, American and Russian military officers sat side by side in a bunker in Colorado during the New Year transition. They shared their raw radar data in real time. This was done because both sides knew their computers might show ghost incoming missiles due to the Y2K bug. They had to look each other in the eye and say, if my screen shows a launch, it's a glitch. Don't fire back. We were one computer error and one panicked general away from the end of the world. And only a room full of people staying calm saved us.
So, was Y2K a hoax? Absolutely not. It was a very real threat that was defeated by the largest coordinated technical effort in the history of our species. But here is the terrifying part. We haven't escaped the year bug forever.
There is a new countdown ticking right now. It's called the year 2038 problem. Most modern systems use something called Unix time, which counts seconds starting from January 1st, 1970. On January 19th, 2038, that counter will run out of space and wrap around to a negative number. This time, it's not just old computers. It's the servers that run the internet, your smartphone, and the entire global financial system. And unlike 1999, our world is now 1,000,000 times more dependent on these systems.
We survived the digital ghost of 1999, but the question is, will we be ready when the clock runs out again? History shows that we only solve problems when the knife is at our throat.
The Y2K story is a reminder that our modern world is built on a foundation of invisible code, and that foundation is more fragile than we like to admit. We live in a house of cards, and every few decades, the wind starts to blow.
If you want to be part of the 1% who understands the hidden forces shaping our future and survive the next digital reset, you know which button you need to click. Hit subscribe and join the inner circle of those who look beneath the surface. The countdown to 2038 has already started. Will you be ready?